Hello and welcome to The Radical. I'm Christina.
And I'm Nicole. On our podcast, we delve into the roots of metaphysical wisdom.
That's right, Nicole. Our podcast is all about exploring those fundamental truths and practices that nourish your mind, body, and spirit.
Yes, Christina, we want to make metaphysical concepts easy to understand and accessible, especially for those who don't have a ton of time to do all the research.
Right? We'll do the research as well as share our experiences and perspectives, hoping to empower you, our listener, to find balance and magic in your day-to-day.
Inspired by the essence of the word radical, proceeding from the root, let's explore the roots of well-being and self-healing together.
This is The Radical with Christina and Nicole, two metaphysical girls in the material world.
Hello and welcome to The Radical. I'm Nicole.
Hello, everyone. This is Christina.
Today we're talking about free will, choice, experiences, and our elements in the context of Chinese astrology.
A little bit about karma.
Yeah, these different pieces that accompany the astrological puzzle. Not everything is fated. We do have free will.
Mm-hmm. And I remember we did the podcast on the Bazi, and that was when I had a light bulb moment about the elements that make up our life and make up our destiny and how we approach our life's purpose and our life's meaning. And it was the first time I really thought about our experiences being a huge part of that.
Mm-hmm. I talk a little bit more about the Bazi in segment 2, as well as Saturn. And Christina has a list for us in the first segment. And I have 4 cards today.
4?
4. Yes. This deck, the descriptions are a little bit shorter. I'm using the postcards from the liminal space. And I thought, why not?
Do you know that deck is really good for us talking about experiences and, well, particularly Saturn? Because I don't think that Saturn gives you the answers. Saturn gives you the challenge, and then you have to do it. It can't give you the experience, or it can't give you, like, this is what you need to learn from this. Saturn is just like, here it is. Here's your challenge. You've got to have the discipline. You've got to have the commitment. You have to have the experience.
Yeah, I opened my cabinet where I keep all my decks and I was like, which one's the most Saturn? And that's the one that jumped into my awareness. So I'm excited to see what messages we have waiting for us.
Yes. I'm going to start the first part with some basic definitions, starting with freedom of choice. Free will means that people are not simply puppets being pulled by strings, but they have genuine options and choices about what to do. Self-determination implies that people are responsible for their own actions and that those actions reflect their own choices and intentions, rather than it being solely determined by outside factors. Okay? Not predetermined. So free will is often contrasted with determinism, which is the idea that everything is caused by prior events and therefore inevitable. So we're running up some ideas about free will, but free will only works if we have a choice. We have options. And then determinism, when you have no choice or no options. And I'm not saying which one is the answer. Like, I know what my life experience has been, but these concepts, I feel like we just think about these things. And that's the purpose of this podcast, is for us to think about how we are making choices and what our options are in everyday things that we do. The little things and the big things, the little experiences and the big experiences. Karma, a concept prevalent, and this comes from Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, and has a larger concept in our Western culture, right? Refers to the principle of cause and effect. Cause and effect. Actions and intentions influence future experiences. Essentially, it means that our thoughts, words, and actions, so that's thoughts, words, and actions, have consequences that ripple through our lives, shaping future outcomes. So not even just what you do, what you think affects your karma. And then I'm going to tie up this little section here. I have 3 sections within my section. I'm going to end this first part with moral responsibility. The concept of free will is closely tied to the idea of moral responsibility, as we often hold individuals accountable for their actions. And in our Western culture, you're either praised or blamed for your actions. That's from the assumption that the person had a choice for their actions. So what I want to say with this moral responsibility is also look at, if you feel yourself judging or praising or blaming, think about the other side to that and what the options were and what the choice was for that individual and your own on top of that. Okay. This podcast is about an element of finding your true life's potential, or your true life's goal, or your karmic debt, or your destiny. And part of that, or how we find that, is through our experiences in the world around us. Okay, positive actions are seen as creating good karma, good in quotation marks, which can lead to positive outcomes such as success, happiness, meeting your goals, and luck. And negative actions and thoughts and intentions potentially leading to negative outcomes and bad luck. I don't know if I fall clearly on a side of, I think it's a combination of both. I think we make choices, but there's also an element of the universe has a plan for you.
I would agree that there is both. And I think what's neat about Chinese astrology is they account for both.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing with karma too is cause and effect is really simplistic.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think karma works in a linear, sensical, logical way, or even in ways that we can begin to understand, because we can't observe it and we don't know the factors and influences, and is this happening because of that?
I mean, we're looking at it from our own life's experience. And the other podcast that I keep referring back to is the one on superstitions, when I talked about our life is a small sample. It's skewed to our experience. No matter what, we can't experience the large numbers we need to know if things truly are lucky or unlucky. We're looking at it from our point of view. And this is in this life. Karma doesn't have a linear time, and it's not confined to this plane of existence. Okay, another thing to think about as we're talking about experiences is any habitual behavior. Our experiences shape our habitual behavior, which in turn influence our actions and intentions. If we consistently react negatively or positively to certain circumstances and situations and stimulus, we're going to develop a pattern of negative or positive responses. And that is your karma. Something that happens to you every day, and the choice you make to deal with it is part of the energy of your experience and part of your karma. Every little thing matters. The power of meaning. We assign meaning to our experiences, and that and just like how we remember events based on what reinforces what we believe, how we assign meaning to our experiences can have a profound impact on our well-being and our future actions. Just be aware of how you're framing and assigning meaning to difficult experiences and not difficult experiences. Are you looking at it as your choice? Are you the antagonist or the protagonist? Are you the central figure of this story, or are you in a supporting role? How we assign things and how we define things is part of our experience with things. And where we're getting those definitions and where we're getting those meanings, where do they come from? Did they come from your family, a book you read, your college roommate, like, who gave us these definitions and who told us how things have to fit? So, karma, free will, choice, power of meaning, habits. We talked about luck. And the cycle of karma, concept of karma, is often presented as a cycle. Our actions in the present shape our future experiences. This cycle emphasizes the importance of being mindful of our actions and intentions, as they have a direct impact on our overall trajectory. I believe it. I believe that it's a combination of both, because I know that people can change, because I have changed. I've changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, that could have been predetermined, but I also have to be very disciplined to keep this change in place.
Yeah, very Saturnian.
Yes, I work at it every day to maintain this change. And that changed the trajectory. So how we live our lives and how we experience the world around us. And what is an experience? What is experience? Just we talk about work experience, we talk about life travel experience. Anything that you're seeing, feeling, touching or creating, hearing, and then for a big one for me, learning, doing, including physical movement. So seeing the world, but also seeing your own backyard and watching the seasons go by. Feeling, so I've been using the term spirit quest for packing up me and my little dog in my minivan and just driving in a direction. But feeling what it feels like to do that is part of an experience, because I can read a book on it. But for me, I need to feel things. And that is also included in sacred spaces, places that inspire awe. Nicole and I were in Colorado. We came up over a hill and I saw a mountain range and I was floored. And Nicole said to me, she's like, we need more places we need to spend more time in places that make us have that feeling, that inspire awe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But travel might not be your thing. You might be a creator, touching arts, crafts, creating things with your hands. That's your experience, or that's somewhere where you can find experience. Hearing, very important to listen. I love wearing my earbuds too, but sometimes we have to listen to the world around us. Listeners, do your personal inventory. Do a radical personal inventory and see what you need. Do you need internal experiences? Are you so active that you actually need to slow down and read a book and then find a way to relate that experience? Or are you so internal that you have to get out of your home and get out into the world How do we find and enjoy life's experiences? Seems like an easy question, doesn't it? Just go out and do it. Just go out. Just go out your front door and look around. But first, cultivate a positive mindset. Whether you're looking for your thing or you found your thing, or you're there in the middle of your thing, stay in that positive mindset. Be grateful.
I think it's valuable too to have experiences that teach us and show us what is not for us and what we don't enjoy. It's
Exactly.
perfectly fine to not enjoy the opera. You're allowed to have preferences. You're allowed
Absolutely.
to try things. You know, we are working, this is kind of a silly example, but we're in the middle of our affirmation experiment. So, a future episode, upcoming episode, is going to be the results of our affirmation challenge. But I wrote one down. And as soon as I finished writing it, I was like, nope, that's not correct. It's not time for that. And I crossed it out.
And while you're in that space of gratitude, you practice that mindfulness. Be there. Be there. Take your time. If you got yourself all the way to your zoo and you paid that entry fee, go, walk through the zoo twice. Pause and watch the animals. Go through the bug exhibit again because all the bugs weren't out or all the reptiles weren't out. Take your time. If you're going to experience the world and you went to a special restaurant, chew your food, smell your food, look at your food, smell the flowers, stand in the sunshine, stand in the rain. Be there. Wherever you are, be there. Give yourself time to experience it in that way. And another way to stay in that positive mindset is that we do have to embrace change and impermanence. That there's a lot of flow when you're out in the world experiencing new, different, or sometimes something that you want to experience changes. We got to go with the flow. It's not good for our minds to try to control things that aren't meant for us to control. So embrace that, the give and the take. And I got to tell you, put your device down and just look at things with your own eyes. Be in that present moment. Another element of really finding and enjoying is to make meaningful connections. I remember advice I got a long time ago is if you want to meet people, go out and do the things that you like to do and talk to the people that are there. Seems so simple. It seems so simple. If you love your yoga class, smile, say hello to your fellow practitioners, stop and share moments with the class if it's allowed, if it feels right to you. But if you are in a running club, linger for a little bit, learn the names of the people in your club. If you go to a dog park and you love, you don't have to meet everybody on the first day, meet someone new each day you're there. But those connections are part of an experience as well. But listen to this. These connections don't necessarily mean new people. Your experiences can make meaningful connections with people who are already in your life. You can start a project with your sister. You can start a gardening club with your best friend. You can start a knitting group with your extended family. It doesn't have to be new people, but the connections we make with people, and it doesn't have to be a new best friend. You don't have to go out and have coffee with all these people after yoga class. Just say hello, learn somebody's name, go in your car and be on your way. You don't have to do it all at once. Okay. So after we talk about all the connections, always prioritize your self-care. Be kind to yourself, especially when you're trying something new, and being truthful with yourself when realizing something's not for you. Forgive yourself for all those same reasons. And allow yourself to be a learner, a beginner, a new student, being the person in the back of the room. Again, that's like a yoga class thing, like where you're in the back because you need to see everything that's going on. And do this on your schedule. Only you know what's right for you. Only you know how long or how many classes or how much time, energy, or resources to put into experience. You're on your timeline. All right. How to seek out experiences. The one thing that I do know is the more things I attend, the more things I learn about. Like the more I go to the library, the more I see what the library has to offer.
Yeah, the more I travel, the more places get added to
Mm-hmm.
my list to
Mm-hmm.
visit.
Mm-hmm. Parks, farmers markets, free music events, walking areas in towns, trails, parks. One of my local farmers markets, if you don't want to buy anything, this is all done like you don't have to spend money to make connections or to have experiences. But the farmers market has free music there. Some town events are free. And always remember, and I'm reminding myself this, that if it's a free event, your participation doesn't mean you have to buy something, right? I don't know where this lesson came from, that part of participating in something is you purchasing something, you buying something. That is not a requirement. If you want to do it, do it. But don't think that you have to buy so many things of popcorn because you're attending this free movie. No, you don't have to. Save up for a full tank of gas and go to a state park, a national park, a historic site, monument, historic buildings. We have so many in the state I live in, and I don't think I've been to one. I just found this whole thing about a neighborhood, a city near where I live, and they have a whole historic trail. They've got like 12 historic monuments. It doesn't cost anything. Well, the gas, but if you have to be committed, Saturn will tell you it's like you have to show some discipline and save up your money for that tank of gas to have that experience. And then pack your lunch, pack your coffee thermos, fill up that giant water bottle that you have. Check out your community colleges, local colleges, classes, lectures. My local place has free lectures. It might not be 100% something I want to learn about, but I don't know. I should still go probably if I've got the time. I'm not opposed ever to learning something new. You could look into starting a new trade or a vocation, and you could do home stuff. Spend more time gardening. Somebody's going to come by and try and talk to you. If you've ever done that. My neighbors will come and talk to me whenever I'm out pulling weeds out of my front yard. But home improvement stuff, spending time in your yard, your garage, your rarely used spaces. You start cleaning, organizing, creating space for your next hobby or for your next, thing that you want to do. Find your town library, bulletin boards, local publications. I have a free publication in my town that has a list of all the stuff that's going on. Okay. And this is the scariest one for me. Create a group, a community garden, a run club, a book club. And if it doesn't exist and you want it, that could be Saturn telling you have to create it. And that could be your calling. My final note on experiences, just like every single dollar matters, because it does. Every dollar matters, especially today and everything that's going on. Your time has value. Be mindful of how you spend it. Remember the karmic value, literally, of everything you do because it matters. The time you spend on social media, the time you spend reading a book, the time you spend talking to your family, friends, the time you spend walking your dog, it all matters. And we only have so much of it. So continue to experience things, continue to seek out new experiences, but no matter what you're doing, be in that experience and think about it and be mindful about it because life is happening all around us all the time.
It's funny because I think when we planned this episode, I was thinking of experiences more like those learning opportunities that we joke about. And
Oh,
sort
God.
of like an extreme example, the crises that happen in our life. I
Yeah.
was kind of thinking about experiences that way, how you
Hmm.
experience the world, and then the things that kind of happen to us will be part of segment 2. But I did a little bit more digging on the Baza.
Hmm.
Baza. It's kind of like Worcestershire sauce. When you think about saying it, you kind of say it wrong. Baza. Okay.
I think that's right. Za. Baza.
In Chinese metaphysics, it is said that luck is not random.
Mm.
So it's almost like there's not really luck the way we may think of it at all. It's more so about aligning with time cycles and our elements. So in Chinese astrology, we have those 5 elements in our chart, and we want to harmonize our elements. And there's 2 big ideas here. Our natal chart is a fixed destiny,
Hmm.
and this shows the imbalance or balance of those 5 elements, the relationships between them. So some elements, when they're paired together, are supportive, some it's a controlling dynamic, some they clash. And that's of a fixed nature. You can't change their dynamic, but you can learn to work with it. And also in the natal chart, there's indications or probabilities dealing with career, wealth, our health, and relationships. So, kind of what is wired in or where there's some groundwork. Secondly, the dynamic destiny, it's called the luck pillar, but this is more about bringing the elements into balance. So, looking at our chart, seeing where there's imbalance and where we need to bring the balance. And timing is a huge part of this as well, because the luck pillar is a 10-year cycle, bringing new elemental influences into your life. So, together, the timing and the elemental natures work together, and that's what you're trying to harmonize. Because the luck pillars are of a dynamic, not fixed nature, luck cycles matter, but they're more like windows of opportunity.
Mm.
In Chinese astrology, free will, choice, your actions, awareness, thoughts, and environment, like the feng shui and the elements, affect how that luck, if you will, unfolds. So they use the word luck, but it's not this force that kind of swoops into our life and makes something magical happen. It's the result of our choices and how we harmonize the elements in our chart with timing.
Mm.
So the Baza does recognize heavenly luck, earthly luck, and human luck. Heaven luck is our birth chart. That's unchangeable. Earth luck is our elements, our environment, our feng shui, and our human luck, choices, mindset, action.
Human luck. I love that. That is such a cool concept.
It is. It's kind of back to that one third, one third,
Yep.
one
Yep.
third,
Yep.
but this phrases it differently than our episode on the
Hmm.
bazaar. This breaks it down. It's the same concept of the one thirds.
I like this one. I like this one even better. I love the thought that your heaven luck, like no matter what, you were lucky. Your heaven luck
Yeah.
because you were born. So you
Yeah.
already have luck. It's just your luck. And you need
Hmm.
to figure out how to balance your luck with the earth. And then you got to go out and do things with your human luck to make choices and actions and experiences.
Right. And the heaven luck is unchangeable. That's the one third that's more in alignment with fate and destiny.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other 2/3 are free will, our choice, our attitudes, our mindsets, our thoughts, our beliefs, because those end up shaping our reality. We know that from the law of attraction and the law of assumption and the reticular activating system, that our thoughts do shape our reality. That's our human luck. And then our earth luck is looking at the elementals in our Chinese astrological chart and using the principles of feng shui to bring harmony to the elements. Okay, I want to talk about Saturn because Saturn is the teacher in astrology. And again, when I think about experiences, I think about experiences as the thing in our life that probably teaches us the most. So that's where my mind went with experience.
My thing with experience is that if you want to, well, I guess I think that you need to be a part of the world and go out and get experiences. Like experiences like job experience.
Mm.
It's not I mean, part of it is what's happening to me that's out of my control, but to really gather my earth luck and my human luck, I need to go out and do things.
You're seeking out the experience.
Yes.
And I think that is part of the earth luck because you do have to seek out balance.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think because luck, you can have good luck or bad luck. So I think the other side of the seeking out experience coin is the unlucky, the bad luck things that happen to us that change our trajectory.
Do you know that if you never joined a run club, you never would have tripped and broke your ankle? So it's like, what is the experience there? Was it you going out and learn and like running, like learning and building relationships and like mindful connections? And then it's also the experience that an injury happened while you were doing that. That it's they're not separate. So if you choose to do nothing, will you experience nothing or will you continue to experience what was already determined for you? Do you have to go out and seek experience? I guess
Yeah.
that's what everybody's got to answer that question for themselves. So my point of view is we've got to go out into the world and experience it. But that's only my point of view, listeners. That's my concept of experience or one concept of experience. Oh, that's fascinating.
That is part of it because I do believe you have to put yourself in the way of serendipity. You have
Yeah.
to seek out, you have to go out. But my mind went to this experience of things happening to us and kind of, yeah, this extreme of the crisis moments in our life.
That's why we are very excellent co-hosts on podcast because both of us had different concepts that we were bringing together for today. I was like over here and you were over here. I love that.
All right. So let's talk about Saturn. I learned a lot about Saturn that made me appreciate this planet much more. I think Saturn gets a little oversimplified. Once the trans Saturn planets were discovered, those being Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Saturn's significations started to change. What this means is astrologers started treating Saturn differently. Saturn is the last visible to the naked eye planet. So it was the final planet of the original seven. Once Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto were discovered, though, that's when it started to take on this sort of connotation of being a lesser than planet.
My gosh, I just had a light bulb moment. We were chatting about tarot before we hit record, listeners, and we just looked at Saturn. Saturn's tarot card is the World, which is the last card in the hero's journey, and those tarot decks go back before they knew about the other planets.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the completion. That Makes sense.
For a long time in astrological teachings, Saturn was exactly just like in
Yeah.
tarot that end point. And so when these newer trans Saturn planets were discovered, they were associated with higher realms of
Mm-hmm.
consciousness and evolution. So Saturn kind of got this almost like downgrade. It was like, well, there's more now. We're on to like these
Yeah.
bigger themes, these deeper themes.
Transformation and an illusion.
Right.
Never mind discipline and lessons and challenges.
Yeah. So Saturn became more and more associated with what I'm calling the typical significations that are very common today. And it lost some of its maybe original, traditional, or ancient meaning, whatever kind of label you want to use there. And the typical significations are what Christina's mentioned, the taskmaster. It's associated with discipline and structure, restraint, resistance to change, maturity, kind of growing up, time, and karma. And these are not wrong. And they are definitely within Saturn's umbrella, but there's kind of more to Saturn that got lost
Mm-hmm.
over time once Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto were discovered. And what it started feeling like to me was there's a hero's journey that is happening in this part of our solar system. And Christina, I think you taught this to me, maybe in the personality of the planets, but Jupiter represents our free will and our choices and sort of like us expanding out our boundaries. We're pushing past our limits. We're reaching to see kind of how far we can go. We're trying to discover the extent of our capabilities and our personal power. And then Saturn is there limiting Jupiter's expansion. So that's where I think some of that limitation and restriction comes from. But it makes sense.
Saturn caught Jupiter, and then they are they're in a. I mean, everything's orbiting around everything, but the two of them are holding each other along with the sun and the other planets. But yes, isn't that fascinating how that relates to the hero's journey too? That
Mm-hmm.
is actually what happened is Saturn stopped Jupiter.
Yes. Saturn represents the limitations and the boundaries that we bump up against in our personal exploration that's happening with Jupiter. I thought this was interesting. According to Saturn, there is no luck. Saturn is more connected to fate and
Mm-hmm.
karma
Mm-hmm.
or the divine flow. And I don't know why. I don't know if this is going to make sense, but what came to mind when I heard that is a lazy river and how you are flowing around this lazy river. And if you try to go against the current, you can't. You're going to bump into other people. But if you let go and just flow along the lazy river, you're going to get to where you're going.
Yeah.
You're going to reach your fate, your destiny, your karma. And the idea with Saturn too is suffering starts to happen when we have free will. So in Jupiter, we
Mm-hmm.
have free will, and then Saturn's kind of that suffering that we bump up against as a result of our free will. And maybe that's because we're not in the divine flow. Maybe we're making choices that aren't linking up with our fate or our karma. And these bumps in the road happen to realign us on our path.
I think that it could also be that you're not even attempting to live or experience your life. That you're not even on the in the tube in the lazy river. You're still like, oh, I don't want to get my hair wet. And Saturn's lesson is you've got to get your hair wet.
Or you're like hanging on to the side.
Yeah, or you're hanging on to the side, and Saturn's lessons is you will you're not going to get to your divine purpose if you don't let go of the side.
Mm-hmm.
You have to experience the lazy river. You got to get your hair your hair wet. Let's just say you got to let go of the side. You've got to, yeah. But I think that's also a big lesson in Saturn, is that also not experiencing or being closed off to experience can keep you from expanding out, or keep you from your true dharma, your true, life's purpose.
If you're hanging on to the side of the lazy river, you're not in the divine flow.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that divine flow, because one of the big things with experience was like you have to embrace impermanence to truly like get the the lesson, or get the experience of your experience. To really be present, you have to embrace the flow of whatever it is you're doing. You can't hold on to it.
And the other component of the hero's journey, so Jupiter leading up to Saturn, we're playing with free will, we're encountering limits and boundaries. And then once we start moving into Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, these are also called the transpersonal planets. So it's not just about me anymore. We are now in the realm of Aquarius. Aquarius and Uranus are linked. This is more about the collective. Neptune and Pisces, the self undoing, the dissolving, the mystical, the spiritual. And then Pluto and Scorpio, death, rebirth, transformation. So these are going beyond our person. So we see a little bit of a hero's journey happening there. And what I really loved from this talk was the added significations to Saturn before Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto were discovered. And if you put yourself in that time period where Saturn was the last planet in our solar system, Saturn was that division, the literal division between what we could see and what was unseen. It was sitting on this gateway between the seen and the known, and the unseen and the unknown. Therefore, Saturn was very much linked to mystical experiences. It was linked to this theme of being an outsider or a black sheep. And Christina already mentioned it, but impermanence. Saturn taught impermanence, I think, through experiences that happen to us, right? Life happens, and a big lesson in a lot of crisis moments are things change because things cannot stay the same, because life on earth is impermanent. And that is under the umbrella of Saturn. And then once, we were talking about the world card in tarot, which is card 21. It's the end of the hero's journey. So you've learned this lesson for yourself about impermanence. But the other side of that is then becoming a teacher of that spiritual axiom, of teaching others about impermanence, or how to cope with impermanence. Saturn also originally, if you will, was linked to melancholy. And Saturn rules the geometry of the opposition, so the 180-degree opposition, which I think helps me appreciate Saturn more and give Saturn more depth, because it brings to mind that sitting on the gateway, right? It's right on the cusp of the seen and the unseen, the known and the unknown, and that is very much like this metaphysical realm that me and Christina live in with this podcast and what we research and explore. That was Saturn.
One of the other concepts that come up from the world card is integration. And the things you learned through your journey, you have to integrate into your human experience. Is that to truly move forward into understanding our collective unconscious and to understand life, death, and rebirth and true transformation, I need to integrate the lessons that I learned through life, or I just have to keep going. It's that karmic cycle. I have to keep going back through it until I get it, until I get the reward or I get the lesson. And we covered that in the hero's journey.
Yeah.
That the cycle will be repeated until you get it, until it is integrated. And then you can move forward into your spiritual journey, into your metaphysical journey.
Adam Ellenboss, I believe, of Nightlight Astrology is his YouTube channel. And he said, Saturn teaches us how to be of this world without being of it.
Yes.
And he also suggests, he calls it a prayer. To me, prayer means invoking source and it's not religious. So what he offers is invoking the energy of Saturn in this way by saying, on behalf of the way you are guiding my relationship with Source, help me to understand the lessons you are imparting. I love that. And I think we mentioned it very, very briefly in a previous episode, but the Saturn return, the big scary Saturn return that happens, it depends on your chart what age you will be when your Saturn returns. But usually around age 28 to, I think you can be even like 31. So it's kind of a big range. But I love John Mayer, and he has a song called Why Georgia. And in that song, he calls it a quarter life crisis. And I think he has to be describing a Saturn return. So in this song, he says, it might be a quarter life crisis or just the stirring in my soul. Either way, I wonder sometimes about the outcome of a still verdictless life. Am I living it right? And I feel like that's very Saturn. And then in a little bit later in the song, he says, still, everything happens for a reason is no reason not to ask myself, am I living it right? And I feel like that's Saturn too, because Saturn doesn't subscribe to luck. It tends to favor the thinking of karma and destiny and fate, but it also has these experiences and it's learning, and it has the free will of Jupiter constantly confronting it, and it's sitting on that doorway.
Right? That's the new concept I want to meditate on, is Saturn being the cosmic or the metaphysical gateway, or just like the seen and unseen.
I think everything happens for a reason is the same as calling karma cause and effect.
Yep.
Because that is oversimplifying something. You know, a big thing that I like asking myself, and if I have friends who ask for my advice or ask for my thoughts, I will say this. I'm trying to get out of the habit of just giving advice unless specifically asked for advice. But instead of, oh, you're in a car accident, everything happens for a reason. What I'm trying to do is, what is this situation trying to teach me? What lessons are available to me? And that means it's allowed to hurt. I'm allowed to be angry. I'm allowed to feel the way I'm feeling, for sure. I feel like everything happens for a reason is kind of dismissive.
Mm-hmm.
And when we ask questions, what's available for me here? What am I feeling right now? And what does this want to teach me? I think gets us more into the realm of Saturn. Because if something's happening, I do believe it's happening for a reason. But if that's the beginning and the end of it, then we're missing what Saturnian experience is trying to come through, because I also believe everything is happening for me, even if it's not so great in the moment. So it's like, what about this experience is seeking to enrich my life?
The way that phrase, because the way that the phrase is written in the song, it's like a little piece of poetry there. I don't think I know the song. I probably have heard it, but so I'm reading it like it's a poem, the way you have it written here, and it's like, still everything happens for a reason is still no reason not to ask myself if I am living right. And that's sort of like exactly where a lot of us, you, me, and our listeners are on the cusp of realizing there's more to this life than this physical world. Because that everything happens for a reason is kind of like the physical world, telling us. But I think all of us are starting to understand that there's more to that. And we have to ask ourselves, am I living right?
Yes.
There's more to this than just cause and effect.
And I'll tell the condensed version of what happened to me, but car wreck number 1 happened and I was injured, but I was unwilling to modify my life. And I decided after being in a pretty major car wreck that I was going to start a pretty aggressive workout routine. And within 6 weeks, I was in a second car wreck.
Mm.
And so, what that forced me to do, still, everything happens for a reason. I believe that. But it's no reason to not ask myself, am I living it right? So, if I ask myself, honestly, after the second car wreck, which I ended up doing, what is the universe trying to tell me?
Mm.
And in short, the answer was I needed to slow down and I needed to listen to my body because certain things I was trying to force myself to do were no longer appropriate. So you can, I think, have both. Okay, I believe this happened for a reason and I believe things happened for me. But what was my part in this? Or what am I being asked to examine as a result? What can
Yeah.
I learn here? That's the am I living it right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a really good song. I kept melancholy in the list of significations for kind of ancient Saturn because this song is kind of melancholy. I really do think John Mayer was writing the song Why Georgia about a Saturn return, and maybe he didn't know it was a Saturn return, but quarter life crisis gave it away. So,
Mm-hmm.
well, I think we should hear from the universe if we haven't been
I
already.
I know. I think yeah, I'm ready for it. I have a lot of thoughts right now. I have a lot of thoughts.
So, 4 cards
And I have to
want to
choose from
be.
4 cards?
I know, 4 cards
Joking.
today. 4 cards want to be heard. So, card 1, 2, 3, or 4. And the first one is padded room. I know we've had this card
We
on the
have.
podcast before. Due to unforeseen glitches or excessive software updates, the software has overwhelmed the hardware. Take a break to avoid overheating or worse, obsolescence. Card 2, mirror, mirror. There is elegance in accepting honest, unflattering reflection. Your refusal to see will not make unpleasant truths disappear any more than putting your hands over your eyes will make you invisible. Everything you are capable of perceiving is a mirror, and the willingness to regard it as such is an invitation into greater self-awareness. I feel like that's what we were just talking about. Card number 3, just passing through. On one hand, the entirety of life could be viewed as a transient phenomena. On the other, perhaps you are just meant to ride out this particular trip with as little attachment as possible. You will be gone from this moment soon, or it will be gone from you. Try to enjoy impermanence. And then our 4th card is not normal. History tells a long and violent tale of normalized horror in all forms, and this period of history will be no different. Normalcy alludes to mass participation rather than individual well-being. So trust what you can and cannot live with. Be brave for those who come after you in acknowledging what is unacceptable. You cannot change what happened, but you can make sure it doesn't happen again.
Okay, universe, we hear you.
I heard a lot of Saturn in those last 3.
Yeah.
Well, I hope this gave you, listeners, lots of food for thought. I know it did me.
And
next week, we talk about Gemini. So until then, listeners,
me.
take care of yourselves and each other. We love you. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Radical. The Radical is written and produced by Nicole and Christina.
Listener questions can be emailed to us at theradicalpodnc@gmail.com.
Our Instagram is The Radical Pod.
Music by Van Horton. His Instagram is Van Horton Music.